Welcome to the One Step Ahead series, part storytelling, part podcast, and entirely a celebration. This project is a way to honor the wise beings and medicines that serve us in creating a life that is aligned with the unique beings we are, and the values that connect us to ourselves, to others, to our precious planet, and energies in the universe. You're invited to share in the intimate conversations that arise when we ponder and explore the questions: what does living in alignment feel like? What does it look like? How do we find our way, and who are the guides that can help us discover and deepen our understanding of ourselves? If you're a curious seeker, if you've known that something about your circumstances is not quite the right fit and wondered, what else is there? This is a place to open, expand, and explore. One step ahead of our past, of where we've been, one step closer to where we want to be, where we're meant to be, finding alignment. Always, still, putting one foot in front of the other. Welcome to the kickoff of the One Step Ahead summer season. And we've narrowed down the language. When we started off in spring, we were like, is it a series? Is it a podcast? It's all the things. And this is summer. This is season 2. So I can articulate that. And I'm so excited, Eileen, that you're coming back to talk about the energetics of summertime this time. I'll be curious to compare our outfits from when we did this the first time around, because I know we're both feeling pretty summery and it's nice and bright outside. Yeah, energy has definitely been shifting.
Yeah, it has for sure. I was in a warm place when we were recording the beginning. So I was feeling that kind of like, wait, is it summer? It was fall there almost? But it certainly feels like summer's on its way here. I came home last night to the first blossoms on my Mayday tree. And we were walking across the backyard at dusk and I just stopped. I was like, do you smell that? I was like, my tree is blooming.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels great.
And then as the days get a little bit warmer, on top of that, the rich fragrance of the blossoms just gets richer and sweeter and so good. And then all the little pollinators. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, me too. It's spring. It's very much spring as we record this, but just that like promise of summer. And it's my favorite time of year, that like growth and hope and
Where I am, there's at least, I think, 2 mountain ranges between Eileen and I, and on the West Coast, it's been feeling very summery the last couple of days, and it's been fantastic for me to have this really keen awareness to, now I'm mowing the lawn twice a week, and all of these things that just start building up. And I know our intention is to really talk as broadly and richly as we can about the energetics of summertime. But I think the question that's been on my heart, my brain has been saying, please remember to ask Eileen, because I really want to know. And so just, I think only a few weeks ago, we were together in ceremony as you led us through honoring Beltane. And you spoke a little at that time about the energetics around Beltane. And I remember feeling at the time, there's something really to this, because in a North American sense, we think of just these 4 buckets, these 4 different seasons. And depending on where we are in Canada or around the world, those seasons can look so different. And in a lot of areas, I, for example, was speaking with a friend in New Zealand, and it's autumn there. And we talked about, they have the rainy season and then the hot season, and there really isn't the same kind of transition. And I find that fascinating, because my Celtic roots really draw me into the wheel of the year and thinking about really identifying the characteristics around those smaller pieces of what we think of as larger seasons, because the energetic of early summertime is different than the end of summertime is different from the bits in the middle. But we don't necessarily stop and think about it, although we're probably, many of us, very aware of that ramping up in energy that I know for me starts to dip in September as the leaves start to change. But again, I have that very visible, tangible evidence of the seasons changing. And so I think that's all my curious one wanted to express about that. But we would really love if you would maybe weave a little bit more of that into our conversation around the summertime and the different energies that can be, for many of us, a part of that time of year.
Yeah, I would love to. I like that you started us off with Beltane as well, because depending where you are, as you said, in North America, in Canada specifically, I imagine most of our viewers are in this country, the beginning of summer is a bit nebulous. So as you said, in Victoria area, Vancouver area, Lower Mainland, you're starting to see that, like, okay, it feels like summer. And in the Celtic calendar, Beltane, which is May 1st, May Day, is the beginning of the summer season in the Celtic calendar. Whereas in Calgary, we're very firmly in the, like, it's still just kind of barely spring. Like, there's still snow on the ground sometimes, often. And so it's really more about kind of presencing to the energetic potential almost of the season. And there definitely is that kind of rise and fall. The summer solstice, which is Litha, which is the middle of summer, it's also called midsummer in a lot of Europe, is actually the beginning of the summer season officially in Canada. And so there's just these kind of little micro shifts. And depending on where you are, even here where I live, I've always been like, summer solstice is like, yay, it's finally actually spring. We have a really short little season of traditional hot summer here. And the kind of neat thing that has happened for me as I've tuned in more closely to the kind of ever fluctuating rhythms and cycles of energy is that the light is a lot more of a factor in the season for me. And so despite the weather still often being chilly here in June 21st or thereabouts, the fact that it is bright for so long has really started to play a part in my own response to the energy cycles of the seasons.
That makes a lot of sense, really, thinking about sort of that peak on the longest day of the year, and our bodies are growing more and more accustomed to that. Yeah. Yeah. I know there's always, for me, a bit of a sense of relief when the days start getting a little bit shorter. I don't think the short days of December and January are anywhere near my favorite, but I really do love when we get to that peak and then, okay, we start to just unwind and look forward to slowing down. It's not time to slow down yet, but that's what's on the horizon for us. And I know for me at that point, it's like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for a rest.
Yeah, and you're a really common experience that you're calling some attention to there, is that when the light is so bright for so many hours of the day, we don't sleep as much or as well. And there is this energy that comes with summer of this kind of frenetic being out in the world. Oh my gosh, it's summer. We got to make all the plans and do all the things. You know, the sports stuff starts up, and the vacationing and the camping it's a wonderful full time of year, but it can become overstimulating really quickly. We can overfill our days and get over socialized, as it were, that desire to go to the barbecues and that have the fires and all of that kind of social stuff that comes along with summer, especially for more sensitive individuals, can be really overwhelming. And so remembering that the flip side of the frenetic, bright, little sleep kind of summer energy is also that languorous type of, ripe peaches and a hammock with a book afternoons and the
Mhm.
heat kind of energy, and really making sure that we don't forget to partake of that sweetness as we also partake of the joy that having more energy and being out in the world can bring.
It's almost as though the summer sun forces us. It tries really hard. She tries really hard to force us into having to slow down and be languorous. I love that you chose that word because it's hard on our bodies if we try to do too much, and really taking that time out to just be in what is. And hopefully for folks who have a choice between being hot or cooler, I know
Mhm.
that for some folks it just ends up being absolutely stifling, but there is a real sweetness in the siesta time of day, right? Where it's
Yeah.
too hot to tackle anything big. Let's sink into a book. Let's dip our toes in some cool water, whatever we are able to choose for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're finding yourself being overstimulated or tired because you're not getting enough sleep, getting yourself a sleep mask, maybe getting some blackout blinds or just tack a sheet up
Mm,
over your windows. That's what my mom does. Who needs blackout blinds when you have a dark sheet? Some tacks. Or even, I was listening to a podcast episode about for people who are sensitive to the summer energies about how to handle it. And the host actually suggested, spend 15 minutes a day in the closet with the
mm.
doors closed, just so you give yourself some darkness when maybe there really isn't any. Depending on how far north you are, that becomes more and more relevant, right?
What a beautiful invitation for anybody out there who's ever thought, who the heck hides in a closet? Don't think of it as hiding. It's like your own little retreat space. Find some way of making it comfy so that you can just
Mhm.
genuinely relax and indulge in the darkness of it. I love that suggestion so much.
Yeah, it seems cozy, like get in there amongst your clothes. It's a great place to record a podcast too, I've been told. Sound dampening too, right? So if there's a lot of
Sure.
noise, and where I live near a bird sanctuary, we get a lot of bird noise in the summer and I love it. And they start up, that hour before sunrise, and they don't quit until about an hour after sunset. And so it means that there's only really quiet for 3, 4 hours at the peak around that midsummer time.
The problems we love to have, right? The
Yeah.
birds are too loud.
Yeah.
Oh, you just reminded me when I was a little one, I was an only child until I was 15. And my parents created for me this beautiful big bedroom because they wanted me to have space to spread out, to be comfortable, and to keep all of my things in that space. And
Mm.
as a result, I ended up with this beautiful closet that only actually had sliding doors at the top. And so, of course, the bottom that was probably at least 2 feet deep would often develop layers. Over time, they would accumulate. But it was one of my favorite places to just play in, is sort of how I thought about
Yeah.
it. But I think in a lot of ways, it was just a really comfy, dark spot to retreat to. And I loved that I could have all my soft things around me.
There's
Yeah.
something that calls us about those cozy, dark, safe spaces. It's, like caves. They're almost womb-like. Or we
Mhm.
think about C.S. Lewis and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and we've got magic in those spaces too, or possibility, and the ability to be hidden and therefore safe. It makes me think about how women go into labor at night in the dark and often will
Mm.
retreat to a smaller space in their house because again, it's safe, it's cozy, it's away from people and stimulation. There's something probably a little bit primal about that enjoyment of being in the closet.
Yes. And thinking about all of the mamas and parents who really want to meditate.
Yes, I
I'm
have friends who do that.
yes, right? Just gonna hide away for a little bit and yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny to think the invitation to find a small, dark, cozy space is actually a beautiful, healthy gift that we can give ourselves, and to really celebrate that. And yeah. And then there are sun babies who just bask in the glory of it all summer long, right?
That's me. I'm like, I don't need a dark space. This is fine. My extroverted nature thrives in the summer. It's been a lot harder for me to teach myself how to slow down and to embrace the winter than it ever was to embrace the summer.
Hence the traveling that often takes you to warmer countries in January, hey?
Yeah, warmer and lighter at that time of year, or just not cold.
Yes.
Not cold. The ability to walk out of one store without putting on multiple layers, and there's something so joyful about it. And at the same time, coming back to kind of what you said at the beginning, I really do enjoy and crave those four distinct seasons. I think part of the reason I feel that need to escape for part of winter here is because winter really is like 5 to 6 months long in Calgary. We get this like blip of a spring, it's like a couple of weeks, and then we get this blip of a fall, and the rest of the time, we've got a really full on summer for a couple of months, and then the rest is this long winter that never feels like it ends. So that has, as I've learned more about the wheel of the year and how to cycle and shift my energies with it, that's part of what I'm like, okay, Imbolc is supposed to be the beginning of spring, and it's still just cold and snowy and dark. And a witchy woman I follow out on Vancouver Island, Carmen Spagnola, calls it winter spring, which in Victoria is definitely true. Like there's green things coming up on February 1st in the lower mainland of BC, and in Alberta, it's just not the case. Not even close.
No. The snowfall is probably just accumulating more and more. And if it's a year without snow, the frost is going to be really thick.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're lucky if it's spring-like by Ostara, which is Easter. It's not. It's usually still snowy. Yeah.
So what's coming up? Maybe you could just summarize a little bit about the energies around Beltane and what's coming for the next couple of Wheel of the Year.
Yeah.
They're not holidays. Wheel of the Year, what?
Celebrations.
Celebrations. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm happily, yes. So Beltane, as we mentioned, is the beginning of the summer season in the Celtic Wheel of the Year. So it brings a lot of these themes of summer. It's really a celebration of fertility. So fertility of the land returning after the winter, fertility of the people. There are a lot of old customs of hand fasting on this day, even older customs from before monogamy and sex and marriage was a thing. Or like quite so highly prevalent with the coming of Christianity, that couples would go out and bless the fields by having sex in them around Beltane. So there is this like fiery, passionate, fertile, fecund energy around Beltane. The rising of passions mirroring the rising of sap in the trees, the budding of flowers in a lot of parts of the world. That's in North America or the Northern Hemisphere. You've got those early flowers coming to show that fertility. And that gives way into Litha, which is the next Wheel of the Year celebration, which is on June 21st or thereabouts, whenever the solstice is. So the shortest day of the year. And again, this is like this tipping point. So it is said that on the solstices, the Oak King and the Holly King battle. And the Oak King is the king of the light, and the Holly King is the king of the darkness. They're not good and evil. It's just that like the light and dark aspects of our world. And so on Litha, they battle and the Holly King wins. And so the days get a little bit shorter from there on because the darkness is returning. So there's this real energy of balance, a lot of themes of balance, but also of brightness. There's so much light at this time of year. They're always celebrated with fire, with coming together, with community. At this stage, there might be some early fruits and harvest things ready, but it's really not the season of harvest yet. It's really like a lot of work, a lot of energy, gathering, working in the fields, tending to the fields and the livestock. And then towards the end of summer, and usually kind of what we would consider the middle of summer, we have Lunasa, which is the beginning of the autumn season in the Wheel of the Year calendar. It marks the first harvest. And so that falls on August 1st. And it's really interesting. This one fascinated me because when I first started learning about it, I was like, August 1st isn't autumn. Like, what are you talking about? That's like still summer, like full on summer. And then I started to notice that around August 1st is when the first leaves start to turn where I am. And not like the trees aren't turning, but you'll just notice the odd one that has fallen. And it's partly because it's maybe dry and hot, but there is this distinct shift. And we're getting really close by that point, 6.5 or so weeks out from the autumn equinox. And there's a little bit of coolness creeps back in the evenings, and just that really distinct, like, oh yeah, we've shifted again. And I think August is my favorite time of summer to be a bit more languorous because often the days are still really hot, but the nights cool off. There is this sense of like, okay, we've got to suck the marrow out of the last little bit of this season that happens for me in August.
So much of what you say about the seasons, I can understand a little bit of the benefit of our public school calendar year. Classes let out at the end of June, they go back at the beginning of September, and there really is the opportunity for all of that energy and connection for people to fill themselves as filled as they can get, to help carry them through the long winter. And yeah, I have an appreciation for that.
Yeah, there is that need. I have all sorts of opinions on the school system.
I know, me too. And so I
General.
was very carefully like, oh, how am I going to put this? But for the sake of the actual human beings,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
them being able to go with the flow and feel aligned with
Yes.
the energies that are around them. I am a retired public school teacher, and in June, trying to contain myself, and then all of these little, well, not little, many of them were bigger than me, but these young, energetic beings who just wanted to be outside. They wanted to be social. They wanted to play. And having to say, no, we have to stay inside, bums in chairs, quiet, because there are other classes around. Oh, just so counterintuitive. Truly, truly.
Yeah, in a big way, for sure. And I wonder, well, I suspect that initially the school year was set up the way that it was because it allowed for the children to be home to help with some of the gardening, the tending to the fields, and then the harvest, which starts for real in August as the fruits and vegetables really start to ripen. Yeah.
But then that links us back to the magic of the energies of the universe, because the universe is the one who orchestrates these energetic shifts. And so it's almost an example of where humankind didn't have the option. They have to have summers off from school, whether you would make that choice or not, whether you require help with harvest or not. The universe has made it this way. And so everybody, at least in BC, I know that things shift and move a little bit, but by and large, July and August up to just around Labor Day seems to be very, very standard in a lot of places. I think that's kind of a funny little joke, actually. Well, we weren't going to give you the summer off, but the universe says we have to. Except for all of the poor beings who are, showing up and doing the good work and putting in their time, or all of the school teachers who have gone to find their part-time seasonal work or whatever to fill their summer months and replace those paychecks. It's easy sometimes for me to slip into a bit of a daydreamy idea around energy and how much freedom people have, but thank goodness for the longer days, so that hopefully there's time for creating some balance around work and play and lingering in the sunshine.
Yeah.
Lingering?
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Lingering. Yeah, I think so.
I don't know that I've ever spoken it out loud before, so I might
Oh.
have to double check that.
It's a bit of a mouthful of a word in any case.
It is. It is. All right. So Lunasa, beginning of August, that makes a lot of sense. And, folks are maximizing it, squeezing in their last camping trips if they can, but also starting to prepare, whether it's for harvest or back to school or all of those things that need to start getting organized all over again. But then we still have another September, right? Equinox doesn't come until the third week of September. And so yeah. Is that another shift? What comes after Lunasa?
Yeah, that's Mabon. So for us, it's the beginning of autumn. For the Celtic calendar, it's the middle of autumn. And that's part of why August is a little bit more, for me, that kind of languorous piece comes in, because it's that turning inward, right? As autumn comes in, we get that shift from the full moon energy, from the ovulatory energy into the waning moon energy, into the luteal phase, if we're looking at a female menstrual cycle energy, which is very much a slowing down, a turning inward, attending to details, which is that September energy gets magnified by that because of Virgo season. And then Mabon happens on the equinox, and marking that midway point of autumn. It's the second of 3 harvests, which end at Samhain, the beginning of the winter season.
One of your absolute faves.
Yeah, I feel like they're all my favorites. Actually, that's not true. If I had to pick, I love Samhain because it's considered Witch's New Year. It's the beginning of the year on the Celtic calendar, the beginning of the winter. It's a really liminal time, so the veil between the worlds is thin, and there's just so much like spooky fun about it. I'm a Yule girl. I love Christmas. I've always loved Christmas, and so Yule brings a lot of that magic and coziness and sharing and gift giving. And then Beltane's pretty darn fun. I got to firewalk to celebrate Beltane this year, and that was wild.
One of the things that I love so much about the Wheel of the Year, and thank you for reminding me, they're celebrations. They're celebrations, and there's so much richness in each one in honoring that specific time of year. I'm so glad that you're teaching us all about it.
I love teaching it.
And Carmen's book is quite wonderful, The Spirited Kitchen. I do have a copy, and it's wonderful. And it's got such good recipes, but so much wisdom and history. And she really is an incredible teacher and guide. For anybody who's curious and looking for more, The Spirited Kitchen by Carmen Spaniola. When we talked in the springtime, I have the screenshot, actually. It's often open on my desktop, because you so beautifully highlight how the different 4 seasons, Gregorian, what do we
In the
call it?
Gregorian calendar, yeah.
Thank you. How they line up so beautifully with the female menstrual cycle and with the phases of the moon. Would you please share us the summary and description of all of that? Share with us, please. The summary and description of all of that for summertime.
Yeah, so I've kind of briefly mentioned as we go through here, the summertime energies in terms of the lunar cycle are mirroring the energies of the full moon. So we've got lots of light, it's bright, it's a very kind of out in the world time of the year. It's a great time to be, if you're a public speaker or you're launching something, an event, anything like that, just having that energy supporting you to be out in the world and visible. That's also connected with the ovulation phase of our menstrual cycle. And so that's where those Beltane energies come in, right? Of fertility and sensuality and playfulness and that fiery kind of passionate energy all tied in there. And then, oh, what else? Did you ask me another piece there?
No, I think that was the three. I'm
I
just,
think that was, yeah, the
yeah.
season, the cycle, the moon. Oh, yes, the phase of life. So when we look at the woman's life cycle, maiden, mother, crone, and death, mother energy. So again, that really like the fertile years of a woman's life, whether or not you are ever a mother biologically, it's that time in the world where women are often the most visible and engaging with community in ways that sometimes isn't the same as when we're younger or older. And it is that creative force energy that we have during those mother years of our lives.
Makes so much sense and mirrors really what we're seeing in nature with the abundance of berries and fruits and creatures and that idea
Exactly.
of the universe is fertile with every
Yes.
being, the planet, and it goes on from there, right?
Yeah. The birthing of food and new leaves and
Ideas.
creation ideas. Yeah, it's a really great time for creativity and for collaboration and connection because we're magnetic. For women who are menstruating still, when you are ovulating, you are magnetic to people. And then during that full moon energy and during the summer, we can all harness that magnetism that is amplified at those times of year.
We have the parties and the social gathering in the summer because we've got all of the energy to share with each other. And then we have the parties and the social gatherings in winter just to gather all of our loves close together to help fill each other up a little bit more to get through until summer
Mhm.
comes again. Yeah.
Mhm. There's a very different energy behind the gatherings that happen in the summer versus the winter, especially when we pay attention.
Even thinking about what are often exchanged as gifts at different times of the year. Although books are great all year round because they give you the excuse to lie about in the shade or to curl up in front of the fire, but thinking about the outside toys versus the indoor games. I love learning all of this, and each time I hear you speak on it, it lands a little bit more deeply, and all of these ideas are really just seeing opportunities to relate, and I don't need any more proof, but there's this really sweet joy in feeling aligned with all of these different pieces that kind of represent the energies of different seasons without
Mhm.
ever really having paused to sort of slow down and notice before. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's part of the magic of the wheel is that it is cyclical and it's, that spiral and we spiral in and we spiral out and each time we engage with the teachings and the energies, we learn a little bit more about ourselves, about the world around us, about how to live in harmony and balance with it. It's never there's not like an end point. I learn more every year as I get to continue to hold these ceremonies to honor and celebrate these shifts and it just feels like the magic deepens every year.
I'm making a note. I'll even write it down. I know, Eileen, that on your website you have information about the Wheel of the Year ceremonies that you host. And
Mhm.
so I will include a link to that in our show notes
Amazing.
so that anyone who's curious after this conversation. And again, it's just such a gentle way of learning about these things. If there's something in our heart that calls us, feels like maybe there's some alignment for me here. There feels like a wisdom here that I would like to explore. It's such a sweet, gentle way to drop into ceremony and learning. There is nothing about your ceremonies
Mm.
that are heavy, and yeah, so I'm excited to be able to help share the word about that.
Thank you. Those are beautiful words. Yeah, like you can come with a notebook and a pen if you want to jot things down, but it's not. I teach about the history, but it's not like teaching so that you have to remember it and go on. It's more about that coming together in community with women as we have been doing for thousands of years and honoring the cycles and each other, taking time to rest.
Yes. And to be in community. Yeah, it's just a treat, really. I'm looking forward to the next one already. I
Me
am.
too.
Yeah, yeah. I even have a little bit of ivy that I brought into the house. The first ceremony I attended with you, Eileen, was I think Beltane in 2023. And I brought some sprigs of ivy and I put them in a vase with some water. Those same sprigs are still growing. And the second ceremony that I attended with you, no, pardon me, I attended Samhain, I think once as well, but Beltane again for 2024. And it just, it is so exciting to have this greenery that's still thriving in my home with me, and also the opportunity to join. And it felt a little bit familiar. And so I was just open to seeing what might come and land a little bit more deeply now. And I feel like there's just an increased awareness of these subtle shifts in energy, and hence starting the call by asking you to speak about, well, what are all of the ceremonies that fit in under summertime? Because having an awareness and moving through those and really honoring what our bodies are asking us for, whether that's play or rest or darkness or light, and giving ourselves full permission to seek that out and to genuinely receive it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a busy, busy time. And you mentioned it can be in many cases, and for certain folks, it can be very overstimulating. The stimulation may be fully joyful, but then what do we do with all of that? And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate you helping sort of set the scene a little bit, raise hopefully some awareness for folks, because as we move through the summer season of OSA, we have a number of really beautiful practitioners joining us, weaving together plant medicine and ceremony and somatics, and being open to receiving and developing awareness of the magic of the universe, the magic that is just part of all of it that's around us, but can be so very easy to miss when we're not offering it our attention, should it wish to pique our curiosity a little bit. My wish is that for folks who are listening, that there will be these little reminders. Yes, play, do all of the things, work hard, and take time to rest. Take time to check in. Take time to consider, where are you aligned and where is it maybe not feeling aligned, and know that during this busy time, you get to choose. We get to choose where we're going to share our energy.
Yeah.
Feeling like a joyful time of year. I know all of the extra vitamin D and all of the green things growing and all of the creatures that are coming back. Oh, I just want to be
It's a
outside all the
beautiful,
time.
it's a beautiful time for noticing. Like the tree smell scent that stopped me in my tracks last night. And I could have just kept walking, and instead I chose to take 5 seconds to go over and smell up close those blossoms and admire them and revel in the magic that the earth offers us. So it's that, encouragement as the pace picks up to just practice taking a pause when you notice something catches your eye. It's beautiful. Take an extra 3 or 4 seconds just to really notice it and enjoy it. And that's the magic. That's my secret ingredient. Somebody asked me to, bottle up what I do with my one-on-one clients and turn it into a method and like my unique strategy. And I was like, it feels so disingenuous to me, because I think my role is to remind people to notice.
And slow down.
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
question, friend.
Mm-hmm.
How does one know that they are noticing? How do we do that? If that feels like a challenge, if maybe our brains are very focused on other things, how do we learn to notice?
Mm. I would say to start really intentionally by perhaps setting an alarm on your phone that says, take a
Mm.
moment and notice. It's one of those things that as we practice more and more, the better we get at it. Just like anything, the more we do it, the more it just is how we begin to move in the world. And it's that support piece often that I give my clients too when they drop in with voice notes or anything where they're trying to explain things away or hurry themselves into healing or do more to get to a destination. And that's that piece of gentle reminding. Sometimes we don't need an answer right now. Nature grows at its own rate, and so do you. And take a pause and 3 deep breaths.
The breath is such a great place to start because once you and you can do this, just ask yourself, am I breathing? Of course I'm breathing. No, but how do you know you're breathing? So you can even have a hand on your tummy or your chest, or but you can even just stop and pay attention.
Mhm.
Is there breath coming in? What does that feel like? Is there breath going out? How does that feel? Is it moving quickly? Is it moving slowly? Is it in your tummy? Is it just in your throat?
Mhm.
Just pay attention. And so slow down. I love this, the invitation to set a little reminder, particularly for folks who find themselves working a lot inside, but for anybody who's able to set a little date for yourself to ideally, if you can this time of year, take yourself outside
Mhm.
and just pay attention. Where are your feet? What can you hear? What can you see? Can you smell? And and take take them in. And the more I think that we practice doing that, the easier, more natural it can become to step outside and not be working on, meal planning for the week. Or how am I going to get this new offer out? No, you're coming out of there and you're just checking in.
Yeah.
What is this being noticing right now? And
Mhm.
and then it becomes so exciting and amusing and fun. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great if you can create a relationship with a specific little place in nature. It might be the tree in the berm in front of your apartment building, if that's what you've got, or it might be your backyard, or it might be a nature preserve that you like to go to. But the art of noticing, the practice of noticing the same space each
mm,
day or each week through the cycle of the year is another really beautiful way to deepen the practice. It's something we do inside my Unleash Your Inner Witch course is we cultivate a relationship with a place in nature and just see what arises.
so much to feed our curious inner beings. So
Hmm.
good. And it's ever
Hmm.
changing, right? So
Yeah.
it's always going to be something new to notice and celebrate, because the more we can celebrate change in nature, this is a practice, boy, oh boy, celebrating change within ourselves.
Hmm.
Some of those changes are easier to celebrate than others.
Are they ever?
But I personally find some comfort in, I watch the seasons roll through and I can see it out my window and I can feel it in my being at the same time. And knowing that we're doing this together, this is how we were designed to be. This is exquisite nature at work. Makes it a little easier to embrace the change.
It certainly does. She is our wisest teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, friend. Mm, what a good start to our season. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom and just being available for us to keep learning and growing because
Mm.
you really are such an exquisite guide and teacher and wise woman and slow living witch. If all you did was remind us that going slow is beautiful and way more than enough, well, I would think you could be well, your treasure. That's all I have to say. Priceless, a treasure.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yay.
Mhm.
And I'm going to wish you a wonderful rest of your day. And I'm going to say thank you to everyone who's been watching or listening. I hope you're curious to keep joining us throughout the summer, but I know you're busy. And the joy of creating programming like this is it lives on. So if you find
Mhm.
yourself binging everything during those long, colder days when you're inside, just know that they're waiting for you. And we are really excited to continue these really cool conversations. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Best wishes. Bye bye.
Bye.